Did you know that self-driving taxis were being used in California? As in, you could hail a taxi and a vehicle without a driver would pull up and take you to your destination. Seemed like a cool, futuristic idea until I found out that the company which made these self-driving taxis reached an $8 million settlement with a pedestrian. Why would they pay that much money to someone? In this video, I'm not only uncovering the catastrophe that led to the $8 million settlement, but also two other shocking incidents involving this company's self-driving taxis that will leave you asking, why are these taxis still on the streets? But before we do that, what is this self-driving taxi company? Meet Cruise, a San Francisco-based self-driving car company whose autonomous driving is as bad as the company's SEO. Cruise builds autonomous vehicles, which is a fancy way of saying self-driving cars that can operate without a human behind the wheel. These cars are equipped with over 40 cameras and sensors, including LiDAR, audio, and radar, giving the vehicle a 360-degree view of its surroundings. All the data in the cameras and sensors is fed into the vehicle's artificial intelligence software, which processes thousands of data points per second, using this information to identify all living beings and non-living objects around the vehicle. It then predicts the likely actions of those in its surroundings, and based on that, considers multiple possible routes the car could take, making split-second decisions to brake, steer, or move forward. Outside of the tech, which seems too good to be true, each car is given its own name and identity. One of them even has its own Instagram presence. My dog Poppy the AV has more followers on his Instagram than subscribers on this channel. Cars like Poppy have come a long way since the company was founded in October 2013 to reach the point of being self-driving vehicles. Nearly a decade after being founded, on August 10th, 2023, California's regulatory agency for rideshare services and self-driving cars, which is the California Public Utilities Commission, better known as the CAPUC, gave Cruise the green light to charge for rides in their driverless taxis. Unfortunately, this is when the real problems begin. In fact, the first big tragedy happened the very next day after getting approval from the CAPUC, August 11th. You know what other event went down that day? Outside Lands, one of San Francisco's largest music festivals. Now stay with me. Imagine stepping into this vibrant festival which draws nearly 225,000 people packed shoulder to shoulder in Golden Gate Park. On opening day, the air explodes with excitement as you see Kendrick, Jid, and even Shaq take the stage. That Zaza candy you had earlier is hitting just right, while the bass pulses through the night, sending waves of sensational energy rippling through the crowd. Now, a few miles away from Golden Gate Park, a different kind of energy is flowing through the streets of San Francisco. It's giving like, why the are all these Cruise vehicles stopped at every intersection on the streets? For over 15 minutes, 10 headless horsemen are just sitting there, not moving, blocking traffic, leaving long lines of cars stranded behind them, unable to drive around. And why did this happen? Cruise announced that a large festival posed wireless bandwidth constraints, causing delayed connectivity to our vehicles. Basically, all the people at Outside Lands a few miles away were constantly texting their friends and posting the performances all over social media, using up a ton of cellular bandwidth from nearby cell towers. And as a result, every person in northern San Francisco was left with slower network speeds. Every person. And 10 Cruise vehicles, that is. It's shocking to me that the way Cruise cars can drive on the road and move out the way of other cars is only possible with a decent cell service. Now, imagine an earthquake or natural disaster wipes out a cell tower in San Francisco, making all the nearby cruises in that area the most expensive paperweights that block traffic. During a major disaster like this, emergency calls skyrocket, and if these cruises are stuck on the road, they could block emergency responders from doing their job and potentially cost lives. Thus wrapping up our first tragedy. But if you thought this was bad, this comes nowhere near the accident involving the $8 million settlement. It was so bad that the co-founders of the company stepped down from their positions. You're definitely gonna wanna stay buckled in for that. Now, speaking of emergency responders, Cruise has had some interesting run-ins with fire trucks. And one of the craziest incidents happened just 1 week after the Kapuk approved crews to start charging for rides in their driverless taxis. On August 17th, 2023, the scene unfolds at a four-way intersection of Polk and Turk Streets. A fire truck races down the southbound lane of Polk Street, rushing to an emergency. The driver sees a long line of cars stopped at a red light ahead, but notices that the northbound lane was completely clear up to the intersection. The driver channeled their inner Fast and Furious and calculated that they had enough time and space to temporarily move into the northbound lane, trust all drivers to follow the California law and yield to the fire truck until it passed by, and safely move back into the southbound lane at the intersection, essentially cutting through traffic to get to the emergency as fast as possible. And their calculation was almost foolproof, except for the small flaw that maybe not all the cars on the road had drivers to yield to the fire truck. The car waiting at the opposite side of the intersection in the northbound lane was a Cruise driverless vehicle. So the fire truck swerved in the northbound lane and continued zooming down toward the intersection. At the same time, traffic flowing west through the intersection began to stop as drivers heard the approaching sirens. By the time the fire truck reached the intersection, the traffic lights had shifted. The westbound lanes turned red, while the north and southbound lanes turned green. The southbound cars stayed put, yielding to the fire truck. But across the intersection in the northbound lane, the Cruise didn't react the same way. Seeing the green light, it drove forward right in the path of the oncoming fire truck. The two collided head-on, leaving both vehicles motionless in the middle of the road. There was a passenger in the Cruise who faced injuries due to this incident, and there's nothing they could have done. Like if there was a driver in the car, they could at least backseat drive and yell at the driver like, yo, stop, there's a f***ing fire truck! But they couldn't. And don't forget, that fire truck was en route to an emergency, which now needs to wait for another one to get dispatched. That's crazy. And what did Cruise have to say about this? Let's break down what they tweeted. One of our cars entered the intersection on a green light and was struck by an emergency vehicle that appeared to be en route to an emergency scene. Man, Cruise is like horseradish being served as wasabi, cause it's a little manipulative what they're saying here. They're shaping it like, we had a green light, so we went. And we didn't hit a fire truck. Oh no, it's not our fault. We were struck by an emergency vehicle. We were the ones that got hit by them. And we can't say for sure, but it looked like they were going to an emergency scene, but we don't really know. This tweet alone just shows that Cruise didn't take any responsibility for the accident that happened. And believe it or not, the final incident, the one you've all been waiting for, the $8 million catastrophe, is even worse than this. Let's paint the scene of this disaster, which happened on October 2nd, nearly 2 months after the Kapuk gave Cruise approval to charge for rides in their driverless taxis. It was a chilly fall Monday evening, and our protagonist, whom we'll call Mary, had just finished a long day at work. Hey, real quick, the real name of our protagonist involved in this accident is unknown, but we're gonna call her Mary since it's the most popular American name over the last century. Mary's impatience was evident as she hastily walked through the bustling city streets of San Francisco. At an intersection, despite the don't walk signal, Mary's impatience got the better of her. She decided to jaywalk, ignoring the oncoming traffic. Unfortunately, a driver didn't notice her in time and hit Mary, catching her on the hood of their car. She was carried for nearly a block before being thrown onto the road, directly in the path of a Cruise vehicle. Petrified, the driver that hit her fled the scene. Now you'd think, with Cruise's 40+ cameras and sensors, one of them would have detected Mary in its path and hit the e-brake. But no, the autonomous vehicle continued driving forward, running Mary over, only stopping when it registered the impact, pinning Mary underneath the car. It gets worse. After some time passed, the Cruise initiated its safety protocol to pull over to the side of the road, dragging Mary another 20 feet at 7 miles per hour before coming to a stop. By the time the paramedics arrived, Mary was in critical condition. But after months in the hospital, Mary the Trooper made a miraculous recovery. In the end, she reached a settlement with Cruise, reportedly between $8 and $12 million. This tragedy was devastating. But what Cruise did afterwards and what they're going to do in the future is petrifying. After this incident, the self-driving taxi company briefly pulled its autonomous vehicles off the road, and the California DMV suspended Cruise's autonomous driving permits. Despite this, Cruise continues operations. While their fully autonomous vehicles haven't returned to the streets, the company launched supervised driving in Phoenix, Arizona, and Dallas, Texas. In these locations, the vehicles operate autonomously, but with the driver present to take over in emergencies. And the cherry on top? Cruise has announced a multi-year partnership with Uber, where starting in 2025, Uber will present an option to have your trip fulfilled by a Cruise autonomous vehicle. This is Cruise's plan to expand all over the United States. To me, it's all a little crazy. It's insane to me that they name each car to make it feel more human and less creepy. It's wild to me that this company paid more than $8 million. Not little money by any means. This is life-changing money for a life-changing accident. And they didn't pay her because they felt guilty. They paid the lady they scarred to remain quiet for the trauma they had caused. And it's downright terrifying that we are now the guinea pigs in a nationwide experiment starting next year. And if the experiment goes wrong, our lives are on the line, and there's nothing we can do about it whether we're inside or outside of these self-driving cruises. I bet some of you watching are a little skeptical about getting in a cruise now, but let's be real. Most people will only learn about Cruise when they see it as an option in their Uber app. And some of them are going to be like, wow, a self-driving car? That's so cool, of course I want to get in one. Not even thinking or knowing about the dangerous accidents that preceded their decision.